It's 9:20, and the board is now reconvened in open session. We don't have any action on closed section items, so we'll move on to our agenda item review. And our first item is the board self-evaluation instrument. I have a couple things to say about that. One is a small thing. There's a typo on page 1. The word evaluated, it should be the word evaluated. And that's on page 1. And then the second thing that came up after our conversation about this, if you remember, we met and went over this and kind of revised it. Do you see the sentence, leadership competencies will be self-evaluated, not evaluation? And then the question came up from Kathy Mintzberg at the very end about the student achievement data. And should that be there or not? And her view, thank you, Charles. Her view was it was sort of generic, and it was maybe more appropriate as part of the strategic plan, and not so much as part of the board's self-evaluation. So I'm just bringing that up. That was Kathy's, Dr. Mintzberg's input. There's nothing wrong with us having it in both places. There's nothing wrong with it. We're just keeping it as it is. There's nothing wrong with it, with us leaving it out. Or becoming, I guess in theory, part of the data dashboard concept, which would, ties into the strategic plan then. And then it's a little easier to evolve it as appropriate. So does anybody have any thoughts on that?
I'm kind of under the impression that it's not part of the board evaluation if we move ahead with our district dashboards and scorecards. I think that information is going to be more valuable than what this will be.
I tend to agree, and it will be easier to tailor that to what we actually want to know, which we're sort of in the process of working on and working through, rather than have this tied to a separate thing that has to be approved. So how does everyone feel if we take the student achievement data off the end of the board self-evaluation? Okay, everybody's good with that. So we can do that and have that ready for next week. All right, thank you. Any other discussion on the self-evaluation instrument, or any questions or revisions to it? Okay, then let's move on to item B, which is a school improvement plan for Willow Ridge High School.
And we've presented that during the information item. This is simply a whole placeholder for action for next week's agenda.
Right, and is there going to be a plan given to us that's in more detail? Did I hear someone say that?
Yes, ma'am, that'll
It's
be in the
written.
Friday in the board update this week.
Okay. All right, so that's that. And I suppose if we have questions on that, once we receive it, we can send them to administration over the weekend?
Correct.
And so they can be prepared to answer our questions. Okay, great. The next item then is board policy EHDE local regarding alternative methods for earning credit and distance learning. And that's on page 45 of your follow along at home agenda.
And Dr. Whitbeck is going to address that.
What was that?
I don't know.
Elephant?
It was moving. It was an elephant of moving the microphone.
Mr.
Oh my
Spears.
gosh, yes. I'm going to ask Dr. Garcia to come up to the table as well. We need a little comedic
Well, they
relief.
say laughing is healthy, and
Laughing
we
is
do it
healthy.
a lot.
Yes. Exactly. Now we know not to move the
Well, at least the
microphone.
joke wasn't at my expense, that's all I'm saying. All right, sorry. Go ahead.
Well, we've given you our draft of the proposal to change the wording in EHDE local. Just to give you some background, for probably the last year and a half, I would say that issues related to EHDE local have come forward to the curriculum and the leadership department. And each of those times, it has caused us to look closely at what's really going on out in our campuses. There's been a wide array of students being able to take online courses, various vendors, many vendors that we have not felt were of near the quality, particularly with AP classes. To be quite honest, there's been some misuse of some of those types of courses that have been going on. So our goal was to collaborate and to bring forward to you a revision that we felt was fair and that helped address some of the inequities that we've also seen going on in abuse in our current system. So basically the highlights were prepared for you in the recommendation, but we definitely want to tighten our list of approved vendors. It has been a tradition that there's a list, but we really want to narrow that to Texas Virtual School Network, which the state requires that we honor, as well as like Texas Tech University. But we do not want to allow just kind of the fly-by-night companies that are popping up with courses that may not be anywhere near the level of what our students are taking in the classroom. So we want to reduce our choices in our list. We want to make sure that students continue to gain approval. We already have that in practice, and that would continue so that they must go to their counselor and seek approval prior to taking a course. That way the counselor can make sure that this is a course that they need to graduate and that it is appropriate within their plan. We want to limit the amount of online courses taken outside of school to 2 credits. Now, that may not be 2 courses. It could be an economics and a government. Could be, that would only count as 1 credit since those are semester courses. But 2 credits that would be taken out by outside institutions that are approved would be the total that we would want to see added to the transcript. And then that students can only be enrolled in 1 distance course at a time. This is another area that we found that there was quite a bit of abuse going on, where sometimes we would have a student in like 3 at the same time. And then when this would come to the attention of the administration, we were forced into some very difficult decisions about literally having to take credit away from a student because the policy before had stated that that was not allowed. So we're really trying to tighten up the language, make sure we train our counselors, that we're very, very consistent in how we're going about implementing these in the schools. And in one of the, number 8 in your board agenda review, and it is the very last piece of EHDE recommendation on page 3 of 3, I'd like to call your attention to that, because there is a new piece that we've added, and it's basically saying that all correspondence or online learning courses must be completed by the end of the fall semester of the senior year. And I want to elaborate on that because this is one, and we've heard some feedback from parents, and some are here with us, and they're greatly appreciated. We have really, really spent time talking about all kinds of scenarios as this affects to when is the last time this should be allowable for a child to take an online class. In other words, outside of our school day and carry it onto their transcript. And the issue really boils down to applying for college and having a rank. So I am applying for college. I'm applying in September, and right now I'm ranked 33rd out of 300. And I have not taken speech or health yet. So I wait. And by waiting, those are regular weighted courses, my ranking is higher. And what we have now going on in Fort Bend is no regulation whatsoever on it. So we literally, and this is being quite transparent, have had last year seniors in May still in correspondence courses vying for top positions in high schools. And they waited so long that even after that third 9 weeks, where the final cutoff is as to who's valedictorian, who's salutatorian, that they were past that, still taking correspondence courses where those regular courses did not count. We know that's wrong. We've got to tighten that up. So we also looked at what other districts do in high-performing areas. And we batted around, okay, let's end it at the end of junior year. You need to be finished with those courses before the summer. We looked at the end of the summer, and then we looked at semester and of senior year. And we ended up feeling that the most fair thing for the most amount of students is mid-senior year. That way, it is cut off by winter break. If you have not finished these courses, then when you return upon winter break, then you'll be taken out of an elective, even no matter if it's an AP class or whatever, you'll be taken out of an elective and you'll be placed in speech or health or PE, so that when that next 9 weeks comes for the final class rank, those classes will count for you in your ranking. Why do we not want to do it even sooner than that? We felt like it punishes some students to force when you must take something. We have a 7-period day for 4 years. That's 28 credits. Some kids take a few in middle school. If you're a 4-year athlete, if you're a 4-year fine arts student, a 4-year ag student, if you take foreign language more than 2 years, you can start to begin to see you're forcing kids into summer school. And we really didn't, through economic reasons and through the fact that we want students to, we really are trying to encourage the well-rounded child, we did not want to force people into summer school. So therein lies why we did the mid-senior year by the time we got around to all of it. But I wanted to take a moment and kind of explain a little more on that one because it is new for Fort Bend. As I said, right now there is no limit whatsoever, and there has been some abuse. Mr. Rosenthal, I can
Yes.
see you're chomping at the bit.
There
Go ahead,
has, there
Mr.
has been a lot of
Rosenthal.
abuse. So does that now guarantee that speech, PE, and health are going to count toward a senior's ranking for valedictorian and everything else?
Yes,
So it guarantees it.
yes, because if they haven't already completed it, then they will be removed from courses that are not required for graduation, second semester, and placed in those. I will tell you that I am very familiar with that system and have had to have some very, very difficult conversations with parents and kids who have played that game, and they come out of an AP art history, an AP physics that may not be the fourth, I mean, a lot of those classes, and they have to. And so that's the way it goes. So, but we felt like that's about the only way we can guarantee it. And then that way, that third 9 week, when it finally cuts, those grades are included at a regular weight.
Mrs. Bailey, what do you think about that? You okay with that? Because we've talked about that a lot, so.
Well, my opinion is when these students get into 8th grade and the campus that they're going to, their high school, gives them a yellow long sheet and says, this is what you are supposed to take. And the kid says, fine. But yet we know the certain ethnic group knows how to bypass that system and wait to their senior year. I think that I feel we should cut it off by the junior year, summer. Because we don't have our, the kids that are doing this know how to work the system. Okay, they're well trained, and that's a very small percentage of the population. Most kids take these courses when they're supposed to, then they get penalized their sophomore, junior years, and then they have to keep taking AP and taking AP to catch up to these kids that are gaming the system. So I would suggest by the end of their junior year, they have to take their PE, their health, and their speech. And I think that levels the playing field for all the juniors. By their senior year, at least they're all done. And I don't think the counselors that approved this are blowing my mind to let them avoid taking these classes. And yes, it's not fair to those kids who are in athletics and FFA either, because those kids also get penalized because they're doing what they're supposed to also. So I think by the end of the junior year, and that they have the whole summer, and I think we're being pretty generous by doing that.
I mean, would you like me to give you my opinion back on that? It's just that I hear you, and we have talked this through very extensively. It just comes down to forcing students out of other things in order to, in those 3 years that they're in high school, to have made sure that they got those classes. And they may not have had a space if they're heavily involved in a career pathway, or even just a pathway of interest. And so we felt like that while we hear that, there's no perfect answer that fits every child in this scenario. One of the problems, and I appreciate you bringing out, is counseling. And Dr. Garcia can speak to that, but we must talk to our counselors about how they are coaching children from middle school on in what they need to take. And that's got to be equitably addressed across the board. And I think that, and also some changes we're making at Quail Valley Middle School, along with the new GPA system that will be coming for the kids, I think these are all moves in the right direction for some of the pain that everyone is experiencing now. But there's not a perfect answer. But the counseling is a very big piece.
Yeah, but I would say even if you're going down the avenue of FFA, band, orchestra, even these students you will see are probably taking their classes when they're supposed to. I really think if you dug into your numbers, you're going to see that these kids are doing everything right, okay, and how they're supposed to be taking these courses and when. An example I can give is when my son was in 9th grade and he was taking his speech. 3 weeks into it, they were going to transfer him out of it because there were seniors who didn't have their credit. So they're going to boot a freshman out. And so, of course, I stood up and I said, no, you're not going to move him just because a senior didn't take their speech yet. So I do think, I understand what you're saying, but I think the majority of the kids, students, do their path correctly, the right way. And there is a portion of students who don't. And I think that needs to be cut off here in this district.
Does this issue have to do with, and maybe Dr. Garcia, you can speak to this, with personal graduation plans and develop, in the counseling relationship, developing a plan for students and advising them on how to go through their high school years?
Let me,
No.
yeah, let me,
No, it
No,
doesn't.
it doesn't.
It has to do with gaming the system
Four-year plans
to get
have
to get a certain number.
Yeah.
let me just kind of address this. First, I want to tell you that I've had some really strong conversations with the counselors about this because in all the school districts that I have been in, this is the first time I had ever seen anything like that. I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. And I've been in some pretty powerful districts and some large districts, like Northside. People say, well, we have 65 national merits in our school. We had 65 national merits at Clark High School. I mean, it's not when you have strong kids, you have strong kids. But I think it's a phenomenon that without rules and guidelines kind of got out of hand. What traditionally occurs, you're absolutely correct. Kids take it when they're supposed to, for the most part. And I'm going to put it in perspective for you. First of all, as counselors, where I came from, we always advised kids to take certain courses when it was most compatible with their core subjects. For instance, 9th graders, we always placed PE and speech and health in the 9th and 10th grade, so where they wouldn't be knocked out of it. We offered English, and so we had compatible master schedules. So we would say to them, if you leave off your health till your senior year, you may not be able to get into it because it's not compatible with the seniors. Or PE, we never heard of seniors taking PE with 9th graders until I came here. And it's become something that's kind of got a little out of control. But I am going to say this with my mathematical background, that it is sort of a myth that this really helps them. And I'll tell you why, because I really crunched the numbers, that it helps them a whole lot. One of the high schools that I did the top 10, in the future, it's going to be less likely that it's going to help them, I should correct myself, with the new GPA system. Because when I redid the top 10 students at a particular high school on a 100 GPA system, there were only 4 kids who had over 100 GPA. That means that if I'm not one of those 4 kids, then the 100 in speech communication or the 100 in PE is going to help me. It's not going to hurt me. So you're also going to see a lot less kids who are not going to waive out of getting that 100. It's very few at the top. But I also will say that when we cut off the ranks at the end of that first 9 weeks, which is really the third 9 weeks, the first 9 weeks in the spring semester, it's calculated as if the semester had ended in terms of ranks and all that. So the only advantage they get is not at the end when we cut it off in January, but it's in their college application.
Right.
I may be
So-
able to put in my college application that I was number 1, and then in May, I might wind up being number 2, because there's not going to be that big a shift. Because mathematically, it's not possible to change 40-something semester averages with one semester average. I mean, it's not. I've figured it out many different ways. You see what I'm saying? So with the new system, it's going to be less likely. That is the only advantage.
But we still have our kids that are on the 6.0 scale that are still
You do.
battling
You do
this
for 3
problem right
years.
now.
Mhm.
And they also take summer courses. I'm not sure how many courses a year they take right now, that an average kid does not have the money to take, or maybe the parents are like, no, I'm not paying for that, or kid says, I'm not going to
Right.
go to summer school. So they're also paying for that too. So
We did
I
have
would
some
say our
equity.
high achievers, normal kid, gets penalized right now if they take their PE, speech, and what am I missing? Health.
health.
If they take it in 9th grade, they're behind under this current system. So that's why I would say by the end of the junior year.
For the most part, kids are going to take it during their 9th and 10th grade year unless there's some kind of extenuating circumstances.
I agree. So
Or
that's-
they've been coached. And in many cases, I'm going to say this because I've told the counselors this over and over. I said a true counselor is there for every single one of their kids and not to pick and choose who is going to be assisted to game the system. And I've really come down, these are very, how can I say, I'm very passionate about this, and I've used some kind of harsh words about it, about how you guide kids and who you're advocating for. So, but it's not just our counselors that are coaching the kids in some cases.
Well, it's the parents too.
Well, yeah.
So I still think by the end of the junior year, I'm sorry, I think I'm being generous by the end of this, they can take it in the summer and just get it out of the way.
Well, one of the reasons that I'm glad you brought up summer that we did talk about was because this policy has to pertain to all children. And the highly involved child, they may not be gaming, they may not be vying for top 10%, but they may not have room in their schedule if they're involved in multiple activities. They will not have room, and they'll be forced into summer school, which could be an economic issue, or a correspondence course, which could be an economic issue.
But if
So
they're
that's what we
in-
thought about that, too.
Well, if they're in multi, give me an example.
Cheerleading, art, choir. I happen to know that one very well, in my own house.
So wouldn't that be
So,
the student's choice to stay in those and wait to their senior year?
it would be, correct, or that summer
To me,
and that spring,
that's-
and that fall, I mean. Mhm.
All right.
But I'm just
To
saying
me,
there are
that's-
kids, or
that's a normal-
football.
That's a normal kid, okay? That is, I mean, but we're obviously having a gaming problem, and it's obvious. And it's a problem. So I just think we have to shut that down.
Well, if we chose the end of the junior year, I mean, we would have to go back to the drawing board if that's what the board desired on when that could be implemented, because we obviously have children ready to start second semester now, and they could, in their junior year, I don't think that we could begin to even consider that one, but that, that would be just, if the board wants us to go back and reconsider, then that's certainly, we'll do what the board wants us to do. But our recommendation, after looking at it and looking at other policies, is mid-senior outweighs the others.
I guess the only thing it doesn't solve is if you apply for college in September. Otherwise, it does kind of fix the,
It fixes it, but I still think under the current system, the kids.
well, yeah, look,
We're
yeah,
honest
both of our
and
kids have
sincere,
gotten hurt by
so-
that, but, I don't know.
Let's let some other trustees have a turn. How about that, Mrs. Tosa?
So I have a question, and I'm going to need some help here, maybe from you guys and maybe from you guys as well. And I've spoken to the same parents, so So I know I've heard the issue a lot, but here's where I struggle with it. I absolutely believe that counselors should counsel all children the same way. Regardless, if you do this, then this is what's going to happen. If you take these classes, then here's going to be the result. And look at the student's interest, and counsel every student the same. I need someone to define gaming for me, because I was an honor student in high school. And I took the classes that were going to help me achieve the highest GPA I could possibly achieve. I also was very active. I was in band. I was in all these other extra things. But I did whatever was necessary, because if I didn't, I wasn't going to get a scholarship, and I was going to get a scholarship. So that I'm just giving my own personal experience. I'm trying to understand. And I don't have kids in high school yet, so it's different now than it was when I was in high school. Now we have universities that take the top 10% automatically. So of course, you know, they're incentivized to get that GPA up as high as they can possibly get it and be in the top 10%. So, and my general philosophy is that everybody has choices. I mean, you know, you said that everybody's got choices. They're going to choose to be in 3 activities, or they're going to choose to be in none and take all AP courses and do whatever they can do to get the highest GPA they can possibly get, because that's their path that they've chosen. So I struggle a little bit with this. Absolutely not with the equity and counseling issue at all. But I'm trying to wrap my head around, you know, what is it that we really want to achieve from this? What is the message that we want to send students, that whether they're on the well-rounded or, you know, extracurricular activity path, or they're on the academic, you know, I'm going to take as many courses as I can and get the highest GPA I can track. Do you guys want to help me with that? Okay.
That's a great question, because that's kind of what I wanted to address as well. As far as the counseling goes, I think you're right. They can be counseled to do the right things. You know, okay, take this class here, but doesn't mean they have to listen to it, right? And they're also hiring, you know, coaches to tell them what to do, and that's who they're listening to, not the counselors. So, but you're right. We need to decide what we want as far as the district. Do we want to just crank out kids, you know, for ranks or for numbers or for GPAs? Or do we want kids to actually learn and think and use the courses that they're taking? Because I actually wanted to dig into this whole topic a lot deeper, and I've got 4 bullet points, but it goes along with what do we want. As far as pertaining to this policy, I want to make sure I understand what you're saying. In number 4, you say a maximum of 2 credits may be earned from distance learning courses that are not provided at a student's Fort Bend ISD campus. So, does that mean that you can only take maybe a maximum of 4 online classes that are half a credit each? Or you can take those, but you can take other ones as well that are offered? Well, so that I need some clarification on that statement.
Can you clarify that statement, Dr. Whitbeck?
2
Because I-
online, 2 credits. So yes, in semesters, it would be 4. 2 credits through an outside online institution, like Texas Virtual School Network or Texas Tech University. But that would not mean that if you were on your campus and there was an Edgenuity lab and you were taking it there at your school, that would not be the same. Neither would summer school, where there's online work in our Fort Bend summer school. But if you're taking it from an outside organization, that's what we limited to 2. That's our recommendation.
So any Okay, so,
approved vendor.
so you could be taking a summer school class at Fort Bend ISD and at the same time be taking an online course.
You
Or
could,
two.
is because you're allowed one online class at a time. So if you were taking a regular summer school class, like at one of our high schools in the summer, you could be taking health online at the same time, yes.
What
Yes.
about an AP class online at the same time?
Yes, we also, if
Okay.
you'll notice, did not make any distinction
Right.
about AP or not. We just limited the number. So we're not going to say go out and take 5 AP classes that we don't even offer in Fort Bend ISD to our other students. We're not doing that. That's why we limited it to 2 as well. Or usually it's 2 credits.
So
So in other words,
you
enroll
can,
in
you
one
can
and
still
then finish.
take, see what I'm saying here is you can still take a whole bunch of online credits of courses that are offered. That's, because you see what, you see what's being, see what's
I
said
don't think
here?
he's looking at the right limitations. Are you looking at?
I'm looking at number 4. Maximum of 2 credits may be earned from distance learning courses that are not provided
No,
at a
that's-
student's Fort Bend ISD
He's looking at the
campus.
board summary.
Okay.
I think, yeah,
Yeah,
look on the
it says,
policy and tell
Okay.
limitations on the policy instead of the talking points. Okay, it says, a little bit down. It's the 2 of 3, a little bit down?
I got it, I got
Okay,
it.
thank you.
On the limitations.
Mm-hmm.
So, what you're talking about?
Can I ask a clarifying question? When would this policy go into effect? Would it go into effect right away, or what is the plan?
This piece, as far as approval for the online courses, vendors that we would approve immediately. And for seniors that are seniors now, it's a moot point. But for the other students to be finished by winter of next year, it would take effect, so for current juniors. Because it is very doable that they should either be finished or know they need to take care of it in the summer or the fall.
Okay. And did I read this correctly, that only seniors can earn additional online credits for credit recovery? So not underclassmen?
Additional, if needed, to be beyond that. If a student is in a credit recovery mode, you know, that principal, that's why that principal designee can make decisions too that help that student along the way.
Does the case ever come up where there's underclassmen who need additional credit recovery opportunities before they're seniors?
Before junior year or senior, it can.
But Ingenuity would take care of that. I mean, they could take it on campus.
Where the Edgenuity classes don't count?
Correct.
Right, that's correct. It says there, this limitation does not apply to distance learning courses offered on campus. In other words, we offer distance learning through Edgenuity. We've really strengthened what we have tremendously by leaps and bounds because, one, we've put a limitation on the number of courses they can take concurrently. We've had a lot of issues with that, with what does enrolled mean? Does it mean I did the first lesson? Does it mean I paid? Does it mean I didn't pay? I mean, you know, people do all that kind of word, you know, it's driving us nuts, you know. So, but I think we've come a long way with what we're doing here, and we've got some really great vendors. Our Texas Virtual School Network is a pretty tough program, and they require that the exam be taken on campus or, you know, and administered, not be taken online at home, you know, kind of thing. So we really have strengthened this tremendously. Other than the issue that still concerns you, and that's up for y'all's discussion.
Right. So, okay, so let me frame the question a little differently. One of the pieces of information you gave us this week in our update was something that I requested. The maximum number of credits that are earned by students. So this really doesn't limit that at all. And so that goes back to the question you asked, Kristen, and what I wanted to ask was, is that really what we want? Do we want kids to sit around and get earn 37 credits? Or do we want them to actually be well-rounded. Because quite honestly, especially some of the classes that are taken, and I brought this up this summer, we had this conversation. Some of the really tough AP courses that are year-long courses that kids are taking online, or even physically at other places around the area, that just don't meet the rigor. And you know, those kids aren't returning that, or aren't retaining that. They're not really learning it. They're there to get a grade, and that's it. And I don't think that's why we exist. I don't think that's why we should exist. And it's unfortunate that I think kids are pushed to do that. Maybe some of them push themselves. But if it's actually, if we really desire kids to learn a subject, then I think we need to go deeper than what your recommendations are and strengthen this policy and put more limitations. Because I don't think it does anybody any good. It doesn't do society any good. Kids aren't really learning history, then what good is taking the course other than just to go get AP credits and become valedictorian or whatever they're trying to do. And so philosophically, that's what we really need to discuss here. What do we want? Because I don't think that's right. I mean, kids sit around.
What you're describing and what you brought forward to us before, the biggest culprit to that particular situation was the vendors.
But there was the situation that I discussed with you was a course at University of Houston, okay? And there were some AP teachers that were actually tutoring these kids, and they were looking at it as like, this is nothing compared to what we teach. And then they don't go and take the AP courses, I'll bet, because they're taking the exams, because they're taking it in the summer. They're rushing through it in 5 or 6 weeks. They're not going to wait till May, and they're not even learning how to do the essays properly. So again,
Well, I guess,
what are we doing?
Let me ask a question. I want to, because I hear what Mr. Rosenthal is saying, so I want to ask you all a question to see if this makes sense, because I may not be understanding it. By limiting it to 2 and 1 at a time, and then we say they can take others on campus, there's a price to be paid if you take a class on campus, because it's got to be in the Ingenuity Lab, and you got to be scheduled into that. So that means you're giving up another class. So you're going to be in Ingenuity taking 1 class at a time. So that is limiting in and of itself. Can you all talk to what that practically looks like if a student is taking additional online classes through the Ingenuity Lab? I mean,
It's just what you
is that a
described.
limiting factor?
It is just what you described. It is
It
a
is.
period of their day that they will not be able to be in an AP class or something of that nature.
So they're not enrolled in 7 periods and then just going to the lab and taking more and more
Correct. It takes up a
classes.
spot.
They have to enroll in a period of the day to be in there.
right, basically, unless a student transfers from out of state or out of district, I don't know any other districts where they would have that, but basically, the student would have the ability to earn 7 times 4, which is 28 credits. May have a couple in middle school, if they have some credits, so say that's 30. 4 in summer school, because we do offer pre-AP and AP, so that would give them another 4. And then we're saying no more than 2. And that puts them at, what did we calculate, 36? Could be about 36 credits. Now, if you're at Hightower High School, where you have, 4 times 8, that's 32, so you're adding a bit more there. But your point is very well taken. This is a debate that's been going on for a long time. And can we, as a public institution, as a public school system, mandate, can we have compulsory learning, is what I call it. I mean, can you say, you will take this course, you will learn? Everything you're saying is beautiful. Everything you're saying is what we want for kids. And I think for a lot of our kids, they're really finding out that these higher institutions, they really don't want them because they're too one-dimensional. They're not well-rounded. And so they're saying, wait a minute, I was valedictorian, I did not get accepted. And we try to tell them that perfect SAT score doesn't necessarily make a future CEO, and that you have to have those soft skills and all those other things, and that every course we teach is a good piece of knowledge, and no piece of knowledge goes wasted. We say all those beautiful things just like you put it a while ago to them, but there's a difference in values, in how much, what some systems value and others. Goes back to compulsory learning, compulsory application, those kinds of things.
Right, and I don't want to, what's the word? I don't want to keep somebody, I'm not saying okay, you're not even allowed to take this class, but, you don't have to, I guess you can think of a way where you don't have to give them weighted credit for it or something like that, and they won't take it, to count, or you only accept a certain number of credits that count in your ranking and your GPA. If you want to take those classes for fun, go for it, but.
Well, that was one of my questions, is these online classes, I mean, do we give weighted credit? And is
Yes.
and I know we do now, but, well, okay, that's a question. Do we have to give weighted credit? And some of these things, if you're doing it through U of H, isn't that more of a dual credit concept than a AP?
It was an
credit?
AP World History class.
I know, but maybe somebody has, Dr. Whitbeck or whoever has looked at that? Is there rules about that?
That particular course.
Let me just say that there are quite a few vendors. Anybody can open this, kind of a distance learning. And U of H has a fee-for-service kind of program where they can channel, and it is AP, it's not dual credit. But, you have brought up some great questions and dilemmas that we've struggled with. And we don't have the right, we don't have all the answers, and no system is perfect. Because I had many, many long conversations with College Board about why are we allowing so many of these institutions operating to just, you're buying your AP course, online. Because I wasn't seeing any grades below 98 or 100, And so I questioned them, and they said, all we approve is a syllabus. We cannot be there to watch what's going on.
And
they
that's
said
not
to-
right,
allowing
and that's
any of
not
this,
right.
then?
but
That's
here's-
not right, because
that
I
is
know personally, okay, and so does Mrs. Bailey, okay? When my kid took WAP last year, it was a killer, okay? She didn't go out during the weekends, because she was studying and learning and writing essays, and it's not right to have these other kids get the same amount of weighted credit, okay?
but-
To go online, and who knows? They're not taking the AP exam. We've already discussed that. But it's pretty easy to sit there and take screenshots and then hand it off to your friend or your cousin or your sister or your brother and have it easy for them too. It's not right. It's not fair.
me
That's a
kinda-
big
let
inequity.
me-
And
let
the other
me-
thing is cost. Okay, there's a lot of kids that can't afford to take 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 AP classes online. So it's not fair. And I think we need to stop it.
Okay, but let me just say that in those conversations, what I heard, it kind of made me rethink things a little bit, because what I heard from them, and I went almost all the way up to the top, was we are a big equity organization, and what we tried to do for equity, we never thought someone would abuse. And they said to us, the reason we started allowing AP online was for those little small towns where they can't get AP teachers.
Right.
Where kids, have to take an AP course every other year. He said, we tried to do that for equity's sake, and now you're bringing to our attention something that's real inequitable, and we're going to have to go back to the thinking block. So it's not something anyone has solved, but we've tried to solve it by putting limitations on it, the best that we can. Because, Mr. Rosenthal, I'm going to be real honest with you, there's other ways that kids can game the system, that we can do nothing about it, because I've seen it done, and it's not by putting off 3 regular courses. But I'm not going to talk about it right now. And, but I can, if you want to ask me about it, I can tell you, because I've had college math professors come to me and say to me, this is unfair, and I say, you're absolutely correct. So what would you rather have, that your kid take very few courses and just take a handful? The less you take, the higher GPA you're going to have. Or
That seems
take
like a
higher.
different issue to me. I mean, this seems like a different issue. Whether or not that we allow them to take courses that are not up to standard is a different issue than when they're going to be taking PE, health, and whatever the
Well,
other one
and-
is.
That's what we
So let
tried
me
to
I mean, is
interject
that not
because
the
we
case?
try to
I mean,
cover it all.
we got,
It's addressed in here. I mean,
Okay.
see, right now, we don't have.
because it's approved.
The approved list is very broad. We're narrowing it.
Okay.
And I think really, we're all on the same page.
Yes, we
I
are.
mean, the only issue that I think is at hand, because we've limited the number substantially, we've taken it from 8 to 2. We've got an approved list that's very, very narrow. So the only issue that I hear of concern is whether it's the end of junior year or the middle of the senior
For
year.
those three courses.
And I think
Those-
that's, and I
But I
think,
think what we're talking, what we've been talking about, I think goes a lot deeper than that at this point.
can you, yeah, I'm trying.
Yeah, talking about, kids able to go online and taking all these AP courses that, again, they're not controlled.
But in
You
this-
can't control the cheating,
But in this situation, the
Would be.
most they could earn would be 2 credits.
No, I'm not hearing that.
No,
Yes,
that's-
yes,
Oh,
that's
that's
correct.
listed
But it's two
credits.
credits a year.
No,
No, no.
Total.
Total,
High school.
their whole
They
high
can't
school.
take
no, right there under limitations.
Maximum of 2.
2
Yes.
high school.
And,
We were
and,
saying, so they can get 4,
no,
just 2, okay, so online, an online course, in their whole 4 years of high school, they can only take 2.
And
Correct.
they're reputable sources.
And they're difficult, to be honest.
Well, let's go back
They're
and clarify the
difficult.
number. It's 2 credits, which could be
Could be 4
4
courses.
half credits.
Right.
So 4 different, but maximum of 2 full credits.
Okay. So we are virtually limiting their online.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Absolutely we are.
We're greatly limiting
And
it from what
something
it's
even
To
been.
the
bigger than
vendors
that.
we approve.
And
right. And something bigger than that is they have to take the final exam supervised by a staff member of ours. They can't take it anywhere. We get the exam, we administer the exam.
And these are only courses that are required by the
No, it could be.
TEA, or are we talking any?
Could be psychology AP,
electives?
that's not required for graduation, it is an elective. Could be psychology, could be government. It could be,
So we were trying to give a little bit of latitude, but really reining it in, greatly reining it in by going from 8 to 2.
All right.
And Texas Virtual School Network, what I predict, by limiting it to the vendors that we know are really solid, you will not see the students as interested in doing that, because as difficult as WAP was for your daughter, face-to-face, where you can have a conversation and do, group work and things like that, to do these things online is not easy, even if you're very bright. They're just very challenging. Where it's really more the abuse is more the regular weighted classes. And that's where you get back into the dilemma. Do we stop at the end of junior year? Do we stop at the summer of senior? Or do we stop at mid-senior? That's really, to me, I think that's our biggest, it sounds like we are all on the same page except for
we are, except for
that.
Yeah, and I think the problem we have right now is that these kids are coming into 9th grade because of the GT Academy, and because the counselors have approved for these kids to double up on their science and math courses, they're significantly ahead of any kid who doesn't have access or did not even know about access. I've talked to many parents that didn't even know their kid could take some of these courses,
I'm one of them.
in their 0 period in middle school. So
You are correct, and that's a separate issue, and we are on it. We
But
have revised
our-
the course
I know, but I
catalog,
guess our
and
kids-
we're on it.
So I guess our students here are paying the price, but if you've got an 8th grader on down, you're pretty much going to be in a much more equitable system than what our kids today. And that goes back to Ms. Tassan's question, because she doesn't, you don't know what it's like with the 6.0 scale and what these
Right.
kids do, to make sure that they're ahead when they get to high school. And would I say, are some of them genuine? Yes. Are some of these kids truly have a love for math and science? Yes. But I would say the bulk of them, probably not. They just want to get number 1.
Well, I think what we've been discussing here is probably different than my question, really. I mean, because I don't want to allow students to take courses that are easy or that you can easily cheat on. I don't think anybody wants that, just like the counseling issue. I'm with you on that. My only question was about when, like the timing of taking certain courses and that kind of thing. And I guess the reason that, the main reason I asked the question is because, I sort of teeter on the line between, I don't want too much compulsory. I want to give kids freedom to make choices. And sometimes the choices aren't the choices we would make for our kids, but, it's going to be different for every family versus, drawing those lines, though, that sometimes have to be drawn about when kids are going to do what and what they're going to do. So that's the real question is, I guess, where are we going to draw that line? And what's the basis for that? And make sure, we do no harm to as many kids as possible.
Exactly. And Ms. Tyson, you brought up timing, and you're thinking of timing in a different way. There's another thing that hasn't been mentioned that we're doing as well, and it's been pretty loose here for several years. We haven't had prerequisites on our course description catalog. We're going to start having prerequisites.
Well, that's the answer, because that was the next
Because-
thing I was going to say, is
biology.
don't we
Because,
have,
kid will say, well, I'm taking chemistry AP and physics AP together, and this, and then I'm thinking, well, what about the kid who is in who is in chemistry, who is in chemistry AP, and then goes on to physics? And then there's kids in physics who have never had chemistry because they're doing it concurrently. You see, so it leaves a lot of how can I say, unlevel playing field. So we're also going to be putting in some prerequisites. And one of the messages that I tell the counselors to continually tell the parents is that, yes, we're going to have some kids that are real bright, that are real prodigies, and yes, they can handle 5 or 6 AP courses as a freshman or a sophomore. That's about 18 to 21 credit college hours, plus being in the band or something. If you have a child that's 14 and can handle 21 college hours, my gosh. I mean, but I try to put it like that as college hours. Can your 14-year-old handle 18 to 21 college hours? What kind of balance do you want for your child? When we talk to them like that one-on-one, parents come around and say, well, I never thought of it that way, It's unhealthy, like you said.
It is.
It's
I
unhealthy.
got one that does it. She's, AP Physics, AP Chemistry, pre-cal, all that stuff, at the
That's
same
her
time.
life, and
Yeah,
that's her life.
that's her life. And I'm not happy about it, but that's her choice. And I don't want to limit choices either. It just, you used the key word, and so did Mrs. Bailey, is level the playing field.
Level the playing field.
And I personally think, and maybe this is getting a little, I hope we can have this discussion as you delve more and more into this, but these kids that are coming into high school with 5, 6, weighted credits, I don't want to take the credit. I mean, I don't want to discourage them from accelerated learning. I don't ever want to do that. But maybe you don't treat them as weighted until they get into high school.
Well, they're
Yeah.
not, right.
And that way, everybody starts high school.
Okay.
Everybody starts high school with 0.
Except if they're, so are you saying if they take, well, it is regular.
Well,
credit. Now that I'm
mathematics-
thinking about it, Algebra 1
math-
is.
Mathematics has
Right,
always
no,
been
and again, I'm not
advanced.
discouraging it from taking out, you should take it out. I wish all my kids would take algebra in 8th grade, but doesn't mean you have to weight it. As a
There-
district, that's a decision you have to make.
There are some courses that, because in order to get to calculus, you have to have had Algebra 1. But
Right.
there's no reason to finish with calculus your sophomore, junior year. What are you going to take your,
Well, but I'm just saying, I'm not discouraged, I don't want to, if there are kids that can do accelerated learning, that's great.
Yes.
I'm just saying, as far as the weighting and the GPA game goes, we don't have to weight them.
So, Mr. Rosenthal, what I hear you asking is, can we start everybody when they start 9th grade?
Right.
Can we
At the
start
same
them at
place.
0?
Right.
In other words, they have credits, but it's like pass-fail
Right,
credits or whatever.
well, yeah, I mean, right. And they're gonna have an advantage anyway, because they're accelerated, so they'll be able to get into those AP classes, first. And that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. It's just, when they start high school,
Right.
to make it equitable across the district,
Or easy, I mean, the same we go back to the counselor issue again, the same access.
I was going to say,
I mean,
that's the issue.
kids who want to place out of math, they take the 6th grade test. Not very many parents know about that. 5th grade counselors do not tell those students, you are smart enough to do geometry and Algebra 1 in middle school. So they come in 6th grade, they're bored, whatever, and they have to go through. So again, it just comes back to that counselor issue, and if it just wasn't, if a parent hadn't talked to another parent and they found out, it's just, it's insane that nothing is consistent in this district. And the GT Academy on top of that just really, I think, brought this thing, but it bubbled it all up, basically.
I think you're right.
So we know we need to evaluate our are gifted and talented, and and I know that's on the to-do list. And along with that is this access to credits, because that kind of dovetails in there. Some kids have access to credits early and some don't. So I think it's pretty clear that we're uncomfortable with that. I also am hearing equity in the message that's communicated to students. And Ms. Bailey, you bring it up, it needs to start in the 5th grade, and that may be, I hadn't thought of it that way before. I was thinking more along the middle school time, but, okay, so we need to be consistent in our message we're communicating so that every child has the same opportunities. That's what I'm hearing everybody say.
Or they know they have them.
They know they have them, right. And so that they know what I think you said it earlier, they know what the choices that they make, they understand the implication and the
Right.
long-term effects of those choices.
Right.
Okay, so that's what we want to go for. That's what we want it to look like. So
Right.
that kids all have the same opportunity and they understand the results or the consequences of their choices, or the opportunities of their choices if they want to push themselves,
Right.
for example.
But the reason you do have a lot of kids doubling up on AP chemistry and physics at the same time is they're trying to catch up. You know, they're trying to compete with the kids that had a leg up. And so they drive themselves to that.
All right, and so our understanding of this policy is that we're limiting these extra credits that kids can earn during their high school years to 2. We still haven't solved the issue of credits they can earn before their high school years. And is it fair to say that someone's looking at that and there's discussion as to how to deal with that?
Well, I would say to you, in honesty, that the GPA policy that we brought forward with the changes that were based on a numerical system absolutely did not take into consideration not counting any weights at the middle school level for high school credit courses.
Well, but that
that-
is a different issue, and I think if
Yes,
we
well-
really dig into that, what you'll find is there's probably even greater ways, honestly, Dave, to game the system if you do that. I mean, that's a much more lengthy discussion. I want to answer
It is.
Grail's question, though, and I think the answer is yes, we're planning to roll out new middle school guidelines. For example, you can't take biology if you haven't taken or tested out of 8th grade science. And right now, we have students, it's kind of like the prerequisite
Concurrent,
issue.
they're taking it
Right
concurrently.
now, there's no prerequisite. We're dual enrolling students in biology and 8th grade science. Something as simple as that, which is an administrative procedure, we're tightening all of this up from the middle school. And we're going to roll all that out publicly during the coming weeks and month as we start enrollment for next school year. So yes, we're fixing the middle school issues simultaneous with this.
Okay,
But those are not policy-related issues, those are,
procedure.
those are procedural issues.
And that has to go with the prerequisites all across the board. Okay.
Exactly.
Now, are those tests going to be rigorous? Placing out of 8th grade science, placing out of 6th grade math? I mean, I'm hearing different things.
Those are
from the
credit by
community.
exams, and that's, dictated by the state.
Okay, that's credit by exam.
They're developed, is it UT? I'm not positive who developed the test. I think it is too.
And we've tightened up our credit by exam policy during the last year as well, by eliminating, the cut score was raised, we're eliminating appeals. So as you can see, we're shoring up all of these areas that allow for some of these different situations to exist.
Do we limit the number of summer courses they take right now?
Do we limit, you can really only take one at a time, summer session 1, summer session 2.
'Cause they're-
You could take a
'cause
full
they're 3
year, or you
weeks,
could
1
take
day.
2 semesters. That's the most you'd be able to take.
And we are limiting it only to rising ninth graders, not 8th graders. Remember, we used to allow on the summer school. It's right here. It says eligibility students in grades 9 through 12 shall be eligible for the learning courses, and then, of course, any of the high school courses, they have to have passed the 8th grade, the summer after their 8th grade.
Okay, what page is that?
Page 1
Of
of
3
3,
at the
which
very
is
bottom.
47.
We changed the 8 to a 9. it may seem baby steps, but it's really huge steps, really.
So you can't start in middle school taking online courses?
Correct. They have to be finished with middle school.
Going to let them be middle school turkeys.
And then I guess you'd have to look at those zero-period classes.
Yes, that's what Dr. Whitbeck was talking about, where, or actually, Dr. Dupree, where you can be concurrently enrolled in 8th grade during zero period, 8th grade science, and then take biology.
Right, but that's even a number of, but let's say it wasn't biology, let's say it's some other class, you could, if some campuses are offering a zero period where you can earn high school credit and some aren't, then that's not fair.
Right.
I'm not familiar with zero
The only
period.
campus that we know of, that I know of, that offered its own zero period was Quail Valley Middle School.
This
And that was
move that we're
biology.
doing at Quail Valley will put them on parity with all the other middle schools, because students throughout the district have done the CBE and are taking biology by going to the high school. The distinction is these students at Quail Valley are having the opportunity to enroll, dual enroll. So by eliminating that, we're creating parity with
Again,
other students.
Equity with it, okay.
So you're going to also get rid of, like, I know there's some students that take a science class at Dulles, and they're in 8th grade. So they go over to Dulles, zero period, and then their parents drive them back to Quail Valley to
They
start
would
the
not
day.
be able to do that unless they had somehow passed the 8th grade credit by exam test prior to beginning that. So that would be highly unlikely. If even the students that we had of 30 in a biology class taking it concurrently, only one had passed the CBE. It's a difficult test. But the state did lower the standard to considering passing at an 80 instead of a 90, and we were disappointed in that, and we can't control that. We don't really think 80 warrants comping out, but that was what they determined. But it is not an easy test, so we've been told.
Okay, so the one outstanding issue that I still see is the senior year, middle of the senior year or the end of the junior year, as far as when these required courses have to be taken. Am I saying that right?
It's the
Okay.
very last item.
Okay, so, I guess my view on this is, I don't think we're in a position to tell children or students when they need to take classes. I think we have to, if they're in their last semester and they haven't, just as if they needed a year-long class and they have to start it by their beginning of their senior year. If it's a semester-long class, they have to have started it by the middle of their senior year. I don't think we can dictate to students when they should take these classes in case they have other personal issues, they have activities they want to belong in. And so I don't think we can tell them what to do. But I do believe we have to give good information to everybody at the beginning so that they understand what their choices mean. If they put those courses off until their last semester, that's one choice they're making. If they choose to take them right away, that's another choice they make. And they need to consciously make that decision, or adults need to help them to consciously make that decision.
Okay, the only thing I would add to that is what happened to my son when he almost got moved out of speech because there were seniors who hadn't taken it. So if we're going to go with this and go with your logic, you cannot bump 9th graders out because somebody decided their last semester of their senior year to take, or even that first semester. So you gotta have to think about staffing guidelines, because I really don't think it's fair, even a 10th grader.
Well, that's really difficult to do because seniors have priority. I mean, if I have especially, I mean, if you have if that's what's going to keep the kid from graduating, we can't keep them from graduating.
Well, make sure they know that.
They should
But there's
know
a
that,
risk, because it's not,
there's a
I mean,
risk,
3
but-
weeks into a semester,
Right.
you're gonna bump some other kid for just signing up like he was supposed to do, and then he misses 3 weeks of some other class that you put him into. So that's not right.
And I
So-
guess theoretically, Lupita, if their only option is the Ingenuity Lab,
That's what I was getting ready to say.
then they can take, if there's not space for them in a health course, we could do it online in the
could
E-Lab
do
at
it.
school.
That's what I was going to
Me too. We
suggest.
were all
So we have
thinking-
options.
I agree with you totally, Ms. Bailey, and we've looked at a lot of scenarios and situations with this. And I think the Ingenuity Lab needs to be used, not bumping students out to keep the class size down. But I also think that some of this will be self-rectifying because there will not be an advantage to putting that off. So if there's no advantage to putting it off, I might as well go ahead and take it with my peers. And I think that will encourage that.
Right, but as some of us have pointed out, there is an advantage to putting
What's
it
that?
off because your class rank at the end of your junior year is what most people are going to be putting on their college applications. And so there is that advantage, and that just needs to be clearly communicated to
Everyone.
everyone so that we have equity and information and people understand what they're choosing. That's my opinion. But
Of course, you might be able to solve that another way. Just at the end of the junior year, you just give them a grade at non-weighted, give them an A.
Placeholder.
Yeah. And then it's in there.
Another solution is that we're working on strengthening the four-year plan that they develop in the 8th grade, so that kids can write down everything that they are interested in taking, and we're doing a lot of training with our middle school counselors to say, how do you fit this all in 4 years? Are you going to have to go to summer school? What will you do? We will do that, but whether that four-year plan stays that way or it gets changed, because every year they can update it, is another issue.
right, and we shouldn't have the issue that Mrs. Bailey talked about because somebody should be checking that rising seniors four-year plan at the end of their junior year to make sure they're enrolled in all the courses that they need so that when they start their senior year, it's not a question of bumping a freshman out because there's already been a master schedule that's been developed that has adequate space in it for all the students who need health or speech or PE or whatever it is. So I think that's that.
I know it's not perfect, but I just, hope that you can see that we are really making some huge gains in the systems. I mean, the different ones that we've brought forward in the last year with GPA, with everything. We're making some major gains in attacking these issues. It's just really hard to
I
cover
agree.
the sweep
Right.
and get them all perfect.
We're getting there, I agree.
getting
And,
there.
I mean, the thing with allowing kids to take their fine art, their extracurriculars without being penalized was, I mean, I wish that was done 5 or 6 years ago. I mean, that's a shame that it wasn't, and I'm really proud that we did that.
I am too.
Well, that's good, and it also sounds like a number of these things to fix this are procedural issues and enforcement of procedures and checking on it. So that's obviously a big step for the Department of School Leadership to be following up on this all the time. I have one other question, because it came up earlier tonight with regard to the follow-up part, and that has to do with, do we have the right procedures in place to keep up with this? In other words, to keep up with how many online classes kids have taken. Do the registrars keep up with the transcripts? Is it a tight enough system that we can keep up with this information correctly? And I mention that because Mr. Chandler, on one of his growth points tonight, mentioned, it was listed up there as transcript audits, which indicates that there might be some issues with transcripts. And I'm just mentioning that because I would think this is the records of this would be on the transcript, and that's where some system would have to be in place to make sure this policy is being implemented uniformly.
We are.
There was a question in there somewhere, but I would like.
We are revising the application form, and it is going to be on NCR triplicate. They have to apply and write, and they have to check box of how many credits have they earned, and they understand they cannot earn more than 2 or we would not post them on their transcript. So the application is almost final, and it's going to be in triplicate because the kid gets one and the child's counselor gets the other, and the registrar will get the other, and they'll be in a binder with listed by the date that they have to bring the grade by.
And
So there'll be a
she's-
double check system.
She's referring to the top of page 2 of 3. It says applications must be submitted and approved on the appropriate district form EHDE-E-1, and that they are working on a revision. I saw a draft of it today.
It'll
So
be a
that'll
lot
be in our
tighter.
regs that will be uniform across the district. And also, it goes back to the counselors and the piece of the,
They have to approve.
they have to get approval before they can take the class. So if they're watching, they have to watch that as they ask for the approval.
Well, it'll be interesting to see if we audit this in 2 years or whatever time, what do we have, is it accurate, is it being implemented fairly everywhere? Because consistency from campus to campus seems to come up from time to time as being an issue, so.
You will have transcripts, though, with more if they're out of state or out of another district.
And I completely understand that, right? But then that needs to be, there needs to be an asterisk on that, and it needs to be clear that that's,
Sure.
that's why it's
Well,
that
there's a
way.
code for that. Yeah, there's
Yeah.
a code. Mhm.
So can those forms or some of these, this policy be embedded into Naviance somewhere?
Their
it's.
4-year plans are going to be in Naviance, and they're going to be
Right, but
reporting
but
how
maybe
they've
even
taken the
these,
courses.
maybe these applications that can be downloaded and, so everybody sees them or has the ability to see
Well,
them.
Once you
they'll see
have
the-
2, you can't download the application anymore. Even if you failed a class, darn it.
And then just one other question, so I just want to make sure this goes into effect for current ninth graders or for rising ninth graders?
This
Yes.
right now, it goes immediately for
Everybody.
everybody.
This is for everybody. So if you've already taken 4 online half-credit courses, you're done.
It's not retroactive, but from this point on, this is it. If we have some kids right
Okay.
now who have 3 credits, there's nothing we can do. But from this point on, because the counselors have been emailing.
Can they
When's
earn
the
2 more?
decision? Huh?
No.
No, that's it.
Okay.
So wait. I want to make sure I understand. So if you've already taken your 2 online credits, you're done
You're done.
from this point on.
Well, you could have taken 4.
Right.
We're not gonna
But I'm
take
saying you
away
can't
from
take
you.
any more.
You can't take any
Got it.
And seniors who have not taken speech, PE, and health will be enrolled in January.
Yes, they always are. They know what they're doing.
Well, we had a few slide.
Well,
We've got to make sure that yes, we will
she's
make sure.
talking about seniors, that the ones that put it off, it's in their schedule. It'll be for the spring semester.
So that's this coming.
That's coming up like after winter break.
We haven't not graduated a senior because he didn't have speech or health, to my knowledge, in the last 3 years. Could be.
All right, okay. I think we've beat this one to death.
It's a great
Yes, thank you,
discussion.
everybody, for a discussion, and thanks for getting the full understanding, and thanks, Dr. Garcia and Dr. Whitbeck, for your preparation. So we're moving on now to item D, which is the proposed selection of a commissioning agent for elementary school 47.
Yes, thank you, Ms. James. On page 50 of the board book, like Ms. James said, we're talking about a potential professional services agreement, excuse me, with Wiley Commissioning for commissioning services related to Elementary 47. This is a prerequisite for the lead building, the lead construction we're trying to do. But even if we weren't going for lead, I would say I would advocate for this type of a procedure because it's a good way to make sure that the owner gets what they pay for, and also to have the owner understand how to maintain their buildings and help with the training on how to maintain the buildings. So contained in Wiley's proposal, their deliverables would be the written commissioning plan, the inspections during the system installation, functional performance testing of system components, and a classic example of that is to make sure that pumps are actually turning the direction and the speed they're supposed to be turning. They would do a design review. They would also review submittals. They would also take a look at the owner's manuals and review those to make sure they make sense with regard to training on the new systems. And then what they do is they do what they call a 10-month follow-up, and some people call it an off-season inspection. So for instance, if we open the building in August, and that's primarily the air conditioning season, they would come back in the off-season to do a more thorough inspection of the boiler. Their proposed fee is $68,950, which is right around 45 cents per square foot. And in preparing for this item, I reached out to one of our board assets who knows a lot about this, and we talked about that fee, and it's potentially a little low, but it's certainly in line with what could be paid out there. So again, the proposal is with Wiley Commissioning for commissioning services for Elementary School 47 with a proposed fee of $68,950.
Thank you, Mr. Cleaver. Do we have any questions? Any of our trustees? Mrs. Bailey?
Did we do this for 46?
Yes, ma'am. We did it for 46, and then also, I believe, for Bowie Middle School.
Okay, so this is our standard practice doing?
Yes, ma'am. It's required for the LEED certification, but it's a good practice for building owners to do this.
Now, are these professional engineers?
Yes, yes. Well, commissioning agent is its own body of knowledge, and it's its own certification.
So they might not be a degreed engineer?
Potentially.
Any other questions? All right, thank you, Mr. Cleaver. Next item, looks like yours too. It's a drainage ditch.
Yes, ma'am. Page 52, it's just what you said. It's a drainage easement at Ridge Point High School for Municipal Utility District 4. The agenda item starts on page 52, and then there is a graphic representation of the easement on page 62. It's a .611 acre easement. It's 20 feet wide. And it goes across the southern portion, the south western portion of the school. So page 62 shows the actual easement, and then I believe that's actually page, what you're looking at there is 60. Yeah, so 62, page 62 right there shows the easement where the arrow is right now. And then page 64 shows it a little more clear. That shape across the top of that plat is the same shape as the graphic depiction of the easement. And so the reason we need the easement is because the residential development has begun on both the south and west sides of Ridge Point High School.
All right. And we don't want flooding, just to finish your sentence for you. Any questions, anybody?
I just think the key words were they've begun development of those sections.
Yes, ma'am. They have broken ground.
Uh-oh, we better get busy, Mr. Cleaver. All right, then we're moving on to item F, which is a resolution of the board delegating authority to the Deputy Superintendent and Chief Human Resources Officer to accept a contract employee's resignation during the contract term. And this is in when Dr. Dupree's not available,
Yes.
so basically first available, is that?
Yes, and actually, that's a legal issue, because by law, only the board must designate who is able to accept the mid-year termination or the mid-year resignation of contract employees. And if I'm not available, it could take time to make that happen.
Right, okay, so it's an either-or situation.
Exactly.
Okay, do we have any questions? All right. Then the next thing is next item is a proposed agreement between the Fort Bend Regional Council on Substance Abuse and Fort Bend ISD. services of a prevention specialist. And this is something we've had in the past, was my understanding from reading this. Have any questions about this one? Right? Then moving on. Item H is a stop-loss coverage for excess workers' compensation insurance. And so that's what that one is. Have questions? The next is the cash and non-cash donations. Have any questions on this one? Then the next items are awesome.
Just what I needed.
Our next items are purchasing. Where to purchasing?
We are pleased to have our new Director of Materials Management here this evening. This is Bob Fazarkerly.
Hi,
Pleasure.
Bob, welcome. Thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure to be here, Dr. Dupree and board members. And I'm pleased to discuss these two items as you may need to. The first item, Education Resource Group, we are proposing to the board that this would be a sole source method of procurement for the ERG-PEM application. It's my understanding that the board is already aware of this application and the things that it can do for the district. And ERG has data available from school districts all over Texas, and they're active in over 20% of the school districts in Texas with their applications, their technology applications. When we consider a sole source award, the first thing that we need to do is to be sure that we have adequate documentation on file from the vendor, and we do. The statutes involved with a sole source award point a school district to consider things like patents and copyrights and so forth as evidence of a sole source authorization. ERG in this case has patented several of their legacy applications. I spoke with Paul Haberlin this morning, and Paul has also told me that they have patents pending for the applications that Fort Bend is considering here. So we feel that the sole source authorization method is warranted, and our recommendation then is for an amount of about $127,000 due to ERG, and approximately $85,000 one-time charges for the first year, and then ongoing licensing and support for the school district would be $92,000 per year.
Okay. Thank you. Do we have any questions? Haley, I know you do. I can read your mind.
I know. I have a ton, but I guess just my first one off the bat is it's going to help us evaluate our teachers and campuses. I wasn't aware we were going to use them for that also. How are
Well,
we?
This tool
is
is
it just the
actually-
data?
It's got a lot of data. It has financial data, student data, and employee data, so it can help us really analyze a lot of different parameters in the district. It's not dissimilar to the FAST report, only it's like FAST on steroids, and we can manipulate it. It's really an excellent tool. You can really do some drill downs into really helping us make decisions that are very thoughtful and meaningful. And also help us make good financial decisions to see if programs are working. I mean, we can, based on coding, we can drill right down to like, is GT working at this campus? And why our scores better at one campus versus another, and then we can go look at that, and that's a bright spot, and maybe replicate that, see what's working, and I think it's going to be an excellent tool for us to do some dashboarding and some scorecards.
This is like a facilities needs assessment, except it's more on human asset. It just goes on and on, it's, you know.
Well, it's human, financial,
Yeah.
and student.
Okay.
So it's a blend of all of them.
The way I look at it is, I know the district at one point undertook the desire to implement a data warehouse. But you invest millions and millions of dollars, and you still, to try to bring all of the data points together and to form the relationship you want. Because our goal would be able to just kind of cobble together all kinds of relationships, so we can study various things all the way from program evaluation, teacher performance, employee performance. And so this, to me, it's a value that we are investing in technology and people to try to manage all these data relationships ourselves. This gives us the nimbleness and the flexibility to really build, like Dina said, to build the scorecards and support. I know you can kind of see all the goals we put at supports, and that's really what's driving us, is we know we need multiple measures to be able to evaluate our performance every year, and we believe this is a valuable resource in supporting that effort.
When you talk about, like evaluating a program, like, okay, we just put all this money into Inspire calculators, could you use it to evaluate the math performance or something like that and throw that out there?
Yeah, there would be ways to, you can partner, you can pair your investment in the calculators with the teachers who are using them, and the results are getting with the students. I mean, you can see how you can bring all the components together.
What would be other examples of things you would?
I could give an example that, because they've allowed us to sort of test drive some applications, and we had some limited use of it. And we are doing some study on special education. And so I asked Steve Bassett to feed to them certain data sets. For example, we know that we have over-identification of African Americans in special education. So I asked him to get them to look at districts in the state that had a certain percent of free and reduced lunch, a certain percent of African American students, and had higher special education performance, so that then we know, okay, who is facing the same sort of demographic shifts that we are having, but having better success. So then we know, okay, what are they doing that we could learn from? The data that we currently have, the data sets we currently have, do not have the capability to do comparisons or deep data digs across state data like that. And so not only can we evaluate our own programs, but we can look at, for example, one of the things they pointed out the other day was there was a certain district that had undergone some demographic shifts, and we know that their early literacy programs are very good and their early math programs are very good, because at third grade their students are very well prepared going into third grade. So one of the things, now that we have an early childhood specialist and we're beginning to focus on early literacy, we want to know, okay, what did they do? What have they done as their demographics shifted? And we would not have access necessarily to that refined data piece without something that gave us a broader sense across the state, plus our own program evaluation. And then it detailed in HR how we could also see, we know that some beginning teachers are more successful in some campuses than others. Well, what's that campus doing differently? We know that we get better teachers sometimes from certain colleges of education than others. If we have some really stellar first, second year teachers and they really stand out, then HR can go into, okay, what schools of education produce those, and we may want to do heavier recruiting there. So those were some of the things they pointed out.
Thank you, Dr. Hill. Do we have any other questions? All right, let's go on to the next purchasing item, which is the police radio system.
Yes, the police radio system item is being driven by new rules and regulations from the Federal Communications Commission. And for the school district, it means that the school district will have to retire its legacy analog phone system and implement a new digital phone system. And so that's what this item is about. The vendor for the item would be Motorola. Motorola is aligned with the Houston-Galveston Area Council, which is the cooperative purchasing group from whom we could make this purchase. And they're also aligned with the Harris County Emergency System. So we feel this is really the right system for our police and perhaps other district personnel to be using. The cost will be $595,000 and change, and it will involve a lot of hardware and software implementation. The item has been vetted by Chief Ryder, and it has been vetted by our technology department as well. So we feel we have a good, solid recommendation for you. The Houston-Galveston Area Council is very, very strong in radios and communications.
Thank you. Do we have any questions? I have a question or two. When I looked at the equipment list here, I didn't see anything about dispatcher radios, or some of those included there, or are dispatcher radios different? Very hard to know.
I'll cheat. The dispatcher radios are on the equipment list. They are, my cheater zone. The cab dispatch consoles, the third one down on the equipment list. We have an equipment list from Motorola.
You do not have that list.
You don't have that. I'm sorry, you don't have that. So we sent that over, and it was kind of condensed down into this agenda item. Dispatch radios are on there. They're about $55,000 a piece, and we have two of those. So that's $110,000 of the $562 total price. These are for police radios. Very quickly, the we are a end user, a subscriber on the, basically a customer, if you will, on the Harris County Regional Radio System. And they have switched over to digital radio systems. Every police agency and fire agency in our county have also either already purchased the equipment to switch to digital, or they've already been approved for funding to switch over to digital. So they are ready to go, and we're the last ones basically asking for the funding. The problem is, if we don't make this switch, then when they do, when the rest of the folks in the county decide to switch, we won't be able to talk to anybody, first responders. So it's quite important for us to be able to talk to first responders.
All right, and we certainly want you to be able to do that, because that will help us to be safer. Okay, so I guess we don't have the total list, so that's why I was asking about the dispatchers. Are there more items that we don't have that we don't know about, that aren't on this list?
Well, they're kind of all summarized.
They're summarized.
It's got a 3-page, very detailed, all the equipment, cable.
I mean, it's got every cable, every nut, bolt, everything on here, so we just summarized it very quickly.
Okay. All right, and is this related to the radio system for transportation?
It can be, yes. When we did the safety and security master plan, we included this and the transportation radios all in one, because they are going to have to switch at some point as well for us to be able to communicate with them. They're not part of this. This is strictly just for the police department. We've split that out. We had about $1.4 million as a place marker set aside. We estimated it was going to be about $800,000 to switch us over. Our good friends from Motorola have worked with us and got the price down to $562,000, and that is with a 5-year warranty. So we were able to save quite a bit of money by bringing this to you at this time of the year.
Okay. Well, that's really good. So good job, Chief. I'm.
Good job.
So was this like a Black Friday deal or what?
Cyber Monday.
Call it Cyber Monday.
Today's Cyber Monday, or next Monday is Cyber Monday. Okay, that's fine. I guess the next question then would be, transportation needs to be able to communicate too.
Yes, ma'am. We're concentrating first on GPS, and so we're thinking radios will either be late first quarter of 2015 or early second quarter of 2015 for us to bring our radios on to seek approval.
Okay. Okay, good.
And I anticipate, I believe, Ben, if you want to speak to this, I anticipate the switch date, we're anticipating everybody in the county switching sometime around December of 15.
Yeah, Harris County.
This is Ben Zatika with Motorola.
Hi. Harris County Regional Radio System that manages the Texas Warn System, the Texas Wide Area Radio Network for law enforcement and public safety. They've mandated that they want the entire system to be fully digital by the end of 2015. In most of Harris County, they've already converted a lot of the agencies, and then they're starting to work with the other 12 counties in the HCAC region that are also part of that system.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much. Do you have any other questions on this one? All right, thank you all very much for that information. Item K are the minutes from the previous meetings. If you have any changes that you've noticed, go ahead and send those to Mrs. Kaiser. And do we have any comments? So then, do we have any audience items? Mrs. Porter, we have nobody who's interested in speaking. All right, so we're ready for adjournment.
To 11.
Motion,
No, I
motion
don't-
to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Thank you. Meeting adjourned.